One of the world's worst problems is actually preventable. There are things we can do to help people improve their lives, grow closer to God in the process, and prevent addiction. And this is an overview of what Steps Ministries is doing about it. First, let's talk about the nature of the problem, and then we'll show what we're doing to help people improve their lives, grow closer to God, and prevent addiction. The depth of the problem is massive. 38,000 people a year die of drug overdose in the United States. That's more than motor vehicle accidents, homicides, and suicides. An additional 80,000 a year, that's another 220 a day, die from alcohol-related issues. Those are massive numbers. The stories behind them are even more frightening, and I've met too many people who've lost a son or a daughter, a wife or a husband, or a sibling, or a friend. The breadth of the problem magnifies what we're talking about. 40 million Americans aged 12 and over meet the criteria for addiction. That's more than heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and other major diseases. 80 million people are risky users who are posing some element of risk to themselves and others. Parents are scared, spouses don't know what to do, and we all know someone who's hurting. And prevention is desperately needed. 90% of the people struggling with addiction won't get help. And 9 out of 10 people with addiction started using before age 18. In a business context, more than 75% of people with addictions are employed full-time. Many of the parents are unaware of the nature of the problem. Business leaders and pastors are oblivious to how many people in the groups they look after are affected. And there's a lot of high-functioning alcoholics and addicts who think they don't have a big problem just because their lives haven't come apart yet. But addiction is preventable and treatable. 45% of the people in the United States have overcome some element of alcohol, drugs, or smoking. It can be done. And when you look at people who are older, the age 55 to 59, only 14% of those are abusing drugs, whereas in the earlier ages, age 18 to 25, it's much, much higher. So we have proven success. And I've met many, many success stories. I've known ex-heroin addicts who are some of the happiest people you could ever know. Alcoholics who are in recovery, who are humble, who appreciate the blessings they get every day, and who are living life right. I've met hundreds and hundreds of transformed people. But let's learn a little bit about what the nature of addiction has, because it's changed. The drugs have changed. We used to just worry about, our kids perhaps having a beer and smoking cigarettes. It's not that case anymore. Now, obviously, alcohol is still a big part of the problem, and probably always will be. But we're moving into a society where marijuana is probably going to be legalized everywhere. So another mind-altering drug is becoming an accepted social norm. And pills are everywhere. If you feel anxious, you take a Xanax to feel better, and then you get used to that way of feeling. If you have any pain, you take a Vicodin, an opioid painkiller, and later that becomes your new normal. That's just what's happening across our society. And heroin has roared back into popularity in the last 10 to 15 years, and it's killing people. And what people are now seeing and what you're hearing on the news is fentanyl, which is 50 times more powerful than heroin. The users have changed. We used to think of users as, a crack addict, on the street somewhere. That's not the case anymore. Now it's upper and middle class families and teenagers, especially with things like heroin, fentanyl, and, opioid prescription painkillers. It's also, the soccer mom or the stay-at-home dad, who maybe they're bored, or maybe they're using, Xanax or other pills to relax, and they get used to that. And it's the high-functioning business person who, just because they're doing well at work, they don't think that their alcohol problem is really an issue, even though it has become an addiction. So the users have changed, and the sources have changed. Again, we used to think of, drug dealers, on the street as being the primary source. Whereas now, frankly, for painkillers and for other types of prescription pills, it's doctors who often pass out prescription pills like they're candy. And it's also, in some cases, unwittingly perhaps, parents who give their kids too often, to solve a problem, or they don't keep up with what's in their medicine cabinet. It's also cell phones. Anyone can order drugs over the phone and have them delivered, or any kid can call one of their friends at school and get drugs within an hour. It's just the nature that we're in. So our ministry was born out of all of this. Of the people you're looking at here, 3 out of the 4 of them had issues with addiction. My personal story was, in high school and college, drinking just became a social habit. When I went into the professional world, it was a way to relax after work. Then, after a decade or two, I noticed it was more in control of me than I was of it. I tried to quit a few times and just couldn't, and I would rationalize my way back into it. I started thinking, is that how I'm going to live the rest of my life? And I was miserable. So finally, I was able to stop, thank the Lord. When one of your sons or daughters is in danger, as one of ours was, it's one of the scariest times a parent can possibly go through. When they're running away or being kicked out of school and having issues with the police and winding up in jail, you're angry and frustrated, but you're mostly scared. And I don't want any parent to feel that way, and it happens too often. But for us, I think it happened for a reason. It led to an epiphany, what I think of as the epiphany of prevention. Why do we wait until people crash and burn and then have them go through a long recovery? That doesn't make any sense. Why don't we focus on prevention? We all have issues that are addiction-like in nature, and there are things we can do to get upstream of those before people crash and die, or crash and burn, and sometimes die. We can do that. And we can focus on grace and hope, because there's many people, who are, they continue their habit because they're in shame. And there's a lot of people around them who are heaping stigma on them, perhaps without even knowing what they're doing. And it's normally not just one thing that you have to do to address the problem. It's normally a holistic set of things, because there may be medical issues, emotional, spiritual, personal, even the people and places that they're around. So you have to think about it holistically like that. And when you look at a lot of the information out there, you can learn a lot about drugs and alcohol. But there's precious little that tells, people what, the how-to steps that they can take. So that's what we're trying to do. And the critical success factors are to create awareness and provide education and help inspire people to become connected. Because we can prevent addiction. And I think everything that we went through was meant to happen. It's for a reason. And we can now help people for a long time, both here and everywhere, in a number of ways. I really enjoy talking to people. I've talked to groups of many sizes, and I'm willing to do that at any time. To parenting seminars and churches and companies and business groups and civic and community organizations. Seeing the people up close and personal is incredibly rewarding. So we do a lot of that. We're also creating content so that we can reach people anywhere, anytime, and scale and get more impact from the ministry. So we have online courses and a whole other set of content that we'll be moving to in the future. We also are reaching out, so that rather than just waiting for people to come and find this content and use it, we're also trying to reach out through the weekly blog, through Facebook, and through traditional media. I've been on the radio and in magazines and so forth. Also, over time, we want to make content available in many forms. So the original book will eventually lead to another, book and audio and ebooks as well. But also sometimes just to have workbooks or tools that are in print are things that help people, go home and actually take steps to move forward. It's also part of our strategy to collaborate with other organizations, again, to extend our impact and reach the most people we can over time. Steps Ministries is, because of what we're doing, this content is relatively universal in nature and also somewhat timeless. The things that we're building now we'll be able to use anywhere, for a long time. And we use it with various audiences. I've mentioned parents and businesses, but also people in recovery, and over time, directly to youth and through schools. The great thing is we have a lot of content that we can use. 275 articles, that's actually a lot when they're all 700 to 1,000 words in length. All of them are heavily researched and very much evidence-based or evidence-informed at times. And all of them are meant to be building blocks that we can put together into seminars that we do face-to-face or online courses or ebooks or lots of different things. If you want to read any of the blog articles, and these are just a few of the titles you're seeing here, just go to the website, lifeimprovementsteps.com, and check out the Steps Journey blog. We have our first online course for parents that's in testing. This is a way to do a couple of things. We had some many parenting seminars, and we'd get a good number of parents there, but we knew that there were hundreds more who weren't able to make it out of convenience or the time wasn't right. Parents especially are very busy. But also, in addition to just making it very convenient for people to take a course on their own time, we also wanted it to be confidential, so that at home, without them having to show up in a room, so that people that they know may see them. We're making it both confidential and convenient to do this. And there's lots of ways that we can use the course, right? You can give it to others as a gift. A church or a company or school can make it available to all their parents. So we think it will really help us reach more parents over time. And we're creating our first business wellness course. When you look at what's going on in businesses, both wellness and healthcare are actually moving toward prevention, but mostly focused on physical diseases and sort. They know that if we focus on diet and exercise and fitness, that'll get ahead of diseases. But we're not doing that yet on addiction. It doesn't make any sense. So we're going to move into that arena. We're going to address the massive gap in workplace addiction prevention, because the vast majority of people who have addiction have full-time jobs. So they're working in people's companies. And mostly we're not doing a lot of things to really help them. So that's what we're going to do. And it's not like, and the human resource professionals, they know the nature of the problem. But right now we aren't doing things to actually get upstream in prevention. So that's what we're going to do. A lot of people understand it, and we think we're going to be one of the first to come out with a workplace-oriented prevention and lifestyle effectiveness program. And that'll be announced at a national conference for the National Wellness Institute on October 1st. Overall, for our ministry, this is just a sampling of some of the feedback we've gotten from church leaders and business leaders and others. It really has been incredibly rewarding, and it's been a blessing. And as we move forward, we hope that that we reach not just hundreds of people, but thousands and even more. And however that works, the ministry is, its destiny will be determined by someone other than me. But our job is to serve people one at a time and do the best job we can. Where are we right now? We've seen that the need is absolutely huge, and that both prevention and recovery are proven to work. We have lots of great content that we can use and that we can reuse in many ways to get out there to lots of people. And we're testing it now. We're actively at that point where we're trying different things to see what reaches different audiences the best ways, and how do we reach out to the most people. But we need to start to package that and figure out how do we scale and impact more people. And for that, we need your help. And there's a lot of ways. Now we're getting to the point where this is an ask. And if you're so willing to pray for the ministry, that's awesome. If you can help us financially, that would be great. There's lots of different projects that you could sponsor. This is just a sample of some of those from a parenting standpoint, on the business wellness side as well, to help us put our first program in place to reach out to youth and schools and to test that and pilot it. We'd love to add another at least part-time person to our Steps ministry. We have a couple of interns, 2 or 3 contractors that we use to do different things. But we're really, to reach the most people, we need to be, over the next year or two, adding resources and adding capability. And we thank you. I thank you for just listening to this overview. I appreciate it. It shows you're interested in it. Again, if nothing else, please pray for the ministry. If you're able to help it, it would really be a blessing, and it would be very leveraged to reach the most people possible. I'll close with this picture. We saw this briefly before. This is a picture that I took, with my cell phone, or from the End Heroin Birmingham walk. If you look closely at what they're doing, you can't really read, what's on the wall here. But this is people writing a testimony to someone that they know that has died. It could have been a son or a daughter or a spouse or a mom or a dad. And the number of people writing is far greater than was on this. And there were thousands of people at this event. Everyone who was there to honor, someone that they knew that they had lost. And the people who are dying are just the tip of the iceberg of the breadth of the problem. Virtually everybody I talk to knows somebody that's hurting. We all know somebody who's struggling with addiction. And the people that we're aware of, again, is just a small fraction of those who really are struggling, because most people keep it secret, and they're kind of scared to talk to people about it. So there's just millions of people who are on a downward path out there, and if they continue, pain and tragedy and sometimes death is going to be what's going to happen. But it doesn't have to be that way, because we can prevent addiction, and we can do it one step at a time. Thank you.